This tutorial is to provide you basic information on how to graph linear equations on the TI-83 calculator. If you notice on the paper, I have two equations that we're going to be graphing. Y equals 2x plus 3 and y equals minus 3/4 x plus 1. Notice that these equations are what they call the slope-intercept form, which is the y equals form. In order to use the calculator, you must have your equations in this form. During the course, you might get equations that are not in this form, which means you're going to have to use algebra to solve the equation for y before you plug it into your calculator. We will just look into this as we go through the course. Today, I'm just going to focus on these two functions. Let's start by graphing y equals 2x plus 3. As I said in the first tutorial, your graphing functions are in the blue up top here. In order to put 2x plus 3 into the calculator, I must hit the y equals button. Now when you hit the y equals button, you can get a dialog box that says plot 1, plot 2, plot 3, y1, y2, y3, y4, and so on and so forth. If there's anything in the y1 field, you must clear it out first by hitting the clear button. Gotta make sure that the y1 field is highlighted before you hit the clear button, but you highlight the y1 field, hit the clear button, and it goes away. To put the equation in, we must have a way to put the variable in. Your variable key is this x, t, theta, n key. That's your variable key. So whenever I use the variable x or any variable, that's the key I'm going to use to put that into the calculator. So to put in 2x plus 3 in the calculator, I simply hit 2, the variable button, plus 3, and to graph it, I simply hit the graph button. Now, if you notice, you get the graph of the equation on the calculator in a xy axis. The default settings for the xy axis is the x value goes from minus 10 to plus 10, the y value goes from minus 10 to plus 10. If you want to look at those particular values, you can do so by hitting the window button. The window button is where you actually see all the settings on the scales. Later on in the course, we might be changing that, but for the time being, we're going to leave them as is. Now, to quit out of any window that you don't want, you must hit the quit button. The quit button is above the mode button. So you have to hit second, quit, and you quit out of that particular window. Let's go back and look at the graph. So I'm going to re-hit the graph button, and that graph comes back up. Notice it shows you the x and the y-intercept, which later on I'm going to show you how you can find those with the calculator where it crosses the axis. But this is the graph of the equation 2x plus 3. To do the second equation, notice it's a minus sign in front. Do not use this minus sign. You use the minus sign next to the dot, period, when you're doing a minus in front of a number. That is a common mistake. If you use the wrong minus sign, the calculator will give you an error. So, to graph this, again, I'm going to hit my y equals button. I'm going to clear out my old equation, and I'm going to put in my new equation. New equation, I first start with a minus sign. Now, fraction 3/4 is division. So, it's 3 divided by 4 times x plus 1. Since division and multiplication is of the same order of operation, you don't have to worry about parentheses. Hit graph. Notice it's a decreasing graph. Again, it's going downhill. There's an x and y intercept, which later on I'll show you how to find those values. If I wanted to change the scaling of the x and y axis, I could do so on the window button, which later on I'll show you how to do that in class. But for the time being, that's how you graph these equations. Now, most people are interested also in what they call a table of values. Instead of manually figuring them out, you can do that with a calculator. To do that, you use the table feature, which is above the graph menu. If you want to generate a table of values for this graph or any graph, you simply hit the second button and the graph button, and it's going to generate a table of values for that particular equation. In this case, it tells you all particular x values and corresponding y values, which you hit the up and down arrow and scroll up and down the table to find different values for that particular graph. When I'm done, I hit second quit, so I'm back at the screen, and I can start over again. This concludes our basic tutorial on graphing.